Hi everyone, welcome back to another amazing episode of the podcast. Today I was absolutely blessed to have on Frank Rich, the owner of Rebuilt Recovery, on the show. And he specializes in helping men break free from porn addiction. And if you've been listening to any of my podcasts, you know that I'm pretty passionate about this topic in terms of being able to use it to optimize your life. We get into some awesome vulnerable stories and like some actual practical tips on like what porn does to your brain and the dopamine systems, like neurochemically. But we also talk about how if you really want to be the best version of yourself, that porn can get in the way. So it's extremely interesting conversation. I highly recommend you listen the whole way through. And before we get to start today, guys, I'm just letting you know that I'm drinking a bone broth here, and I have mixed in a whole bunch of lion's mane mushroom from Eternum Labs. Essentially, it's a very high quality lion's mane mushroom extract, and if you combine it with fats, it helps to get into your brain and supercharge your cognition. You start to really understand, like after taking lion's mane for a while, how much it really helps you focus, and it has all these different other goodies that mushrooms have in terms of protecting your stomach lining and like increasing your immune system. But the best benefits from lion's mane is getting your brain switched on so you can focus and crush your day. Just smashed this podcast out with Frank and it was amazing. I'm having this bone broth and then I'm going to go focus and go as hard as I can in the gym. And if you want to experience that as well, you can get 10% off the lion's mane at eternumlabs.com.au. Put in the code Corey and you can get 10% off. So without any further ado, guys, I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I did, and I bring to you Frank. G'day, Frank. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. What are you currently working on? Like, what's on your agenda and your routine at the moment?
Whew. Uh, my agenda or my routine. So I mean, routine I would see is probably more of a personal question with the agenda of what things am I working on the business side. So which one do you want
Let's go agenda first. What's on the agenda for Frank?
on the agenda? Well, as the time of this recording, it's coming up on the end of a Friday kind of work day. So much like you, I'm an early riser, kind of a 5 a.m. guy, like you're telling me with yourself. So the agenda wise, after specifically after our call here today, it's going to kind of be winding down my evening. I'm in the first week of the 75 hard challenge. I don't know if you are familiar with the 75 hard, so I do have to get my second workout
Familiar.
in this evening, which will just be an outdoor light jog. I don't do anything super intense for the second workout, but yeah, that's specifically just kind of the agenda, for what I'm doing personally here. Things I'm excited about, kind of working on. I was telling you we have a big launch coming up at the end of the month for our coaching company. So putting all the final details together for that offer and hopefully going to hit it out of the park, man. Not just on the business side of hitting, hopefully we'll have a record month revenue and income, but more focus on the impact. So this coaching offer will be the second kind of group coaching model that I've done this year. The first model didn't go as well. So the primary focus for our business this year has been direct one-to-one coaching. And as somebody that coaches individuals and is trying to build a company, that's not really the most scalable business model. So trying to find the positioning, the angle, and the offer that's really going to allow us to scale to 1,000 coaching members next month inside of our group offer. So yeah, that's kind of the big exciting thing. And then I was telling you this week I started a kind of a business coaching role within the mastermind that I'm involved in. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's a couple of the exciting things that I'm working on at the time.
Yeah, it does. So it seems like you're super busy doing all those things, which is great. Feeling obliged, changing the world. And your coaching is obviously super niche, man. Would you like to share with us what you do?
Yeah, it's very niche. So I have a company and organization called Rebuilt Recovery, and it's our mission to help men overcome their battles or quit pornography through the power of faith and fitness. So we take a holistic approach to addiction recovery, integrating, mind, body, brain, and spirit all into one. So yeah, very, very niche, very purpose driven, more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's that look like, man? I'm so intrigued of like what it actually goes into that.
Into the coaching.
Yeah, well, into the programs of helping someone overcome their porn addiction, because obviously you'd probably notice that you'd get a certain type of people that would come and be like, bro, when they finally listen, like, dude, I'm addicted to porn, help me out. I'm trying to actually get rid of it. So, like, what's that like? What's the sort of the customer journey like from someone coming to you and they're like, what do I do? And then, like, how do you sort of walk them through?
Yeah, wow, what a great question. I think, and this has been, this has really been my primary focus for the last going on about 16 months right now. I got into this, like, you don't wake up one day and just decide like, yeah, I'm going to help guys with, this kind of secret private issue that most people don't even want to talk about. Like, it's got to come through an authentic place. And, so it all kind of started with my own kind of recovery. I struggled with it for 20 plus years. And then finding freedom, I realized like I had an opportunity to maybe share and impact, other people's lives through this as well. So the client journey, I think, it starts with shifting your paradigm around pornography, and unfortunately you're kind of working against society norms right now, as young boys grow up. And I don't know what it's like. I've had a handful of clients that are in Australia, so I know there's an issue out there as well. But I don't know, with you personally, where it was in your life. But for most young boys, young men and men in general, it's almost there's this level of acceptance, like, oh yeah, you're a guy, you're supposed to watch porn. So moving that stigma from just the acceptance of it, I think is the first step that a guy has to go through. Like actually realizing like this thing that I've been, watching and looking at for a long time, it's a problem, and here's why. So once they can wrap their head around the impact to the brain, and when I talk about pornography, I need to make sure that I preface it that everything I discuss is internet streaming pornography. So it's your tube sites, this kind of infinite supply of hardcore graphic material that's only kind of been around for maybe a decade or just a little bit more than that. So I think it's got to start with the guy understanding that he's got a problem, and then committing to change. Now, once they're into the program, this is where I'm running into some struggles through a group model. Is every guy's journey is a little bit individualized, and it's based on like what has been the negative impact of porn on your life. Once we can identify that porn has negatively impacted this area of your life, specifically in this way, then we build a plan to improve specifically that area. And by focusing on improving where the negative impact has been, you begin to kind of really see and look at porn a little bit differently. Like I said, it's fully integrated and it's a holistic approach. So we look at his lifestyle, we look at his sleep, we look at his habits, routines, nutrition, training. What is he doing skill-wise or hobbies or creative? Like, if we're going to reboot and rewire your brain, we need to begin to use the brain in other areas. So yeah, it's hard to kind of give you a definitive, journey, because everybody kind of goes through a little bit different of a recovery process. But it starts with the admittance that there's a problem, commitment to change, and then kind of, what AA or 12 steps will tell you is like a full surrender, of your life over. And I think there's got to be an element of that. We have some spiritual, side of things that we integrate into the program. But yeah, once a guy is ready, and committed to change, like, I know we're gonna be able to transform his life, not just with helping him remove porn. Like, our clients are seeing physical transformations. They're seeing, rebuilding, reconnecting their relationships. We're seeing guys, start up new entrepreneurship journeys. We're seeing guys getting promotions within companies that they've been with for years, because we begin to change who they are. So more than anything, we help these guys kind of begin to find a new identity and kind of become, like what I like to say, become the man that they were created to be. So it's kind of an evolution of the man's identity, taking him from, guy that's struggling with porn to fully stepping into his God-given gifts.
Yeah, so true. And there was a couple of points in there that like I extremely resonated with. And one of them was obviously being a kid and integrated with porn. Like a personal story you probably hear 1,000 times. I remember I was first looking at like tits and naked girls, and I was like 10, 11 years old on the school computers, man. And it just went like, you could say downhill from there in terms of like porn addiction. Like it was absolutely nuts. So after like, I don't know, I can't remember, like 14 years old, I used to get told off at home because parents didn't know about like computers. They didn't know what we were doing. So we'd have our friends come around and we'd all just be like, oh, what? Just like looking at porn on the computers. And then like, it's just been so integrated, like it's the norm. And the second thing, which like I was thinking about as you were saying, was like a lot of us guys, we deflect any of like the serious porn conversations through humor because like we all find it's funny. So man, I was just, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, I mean, 11, that's the average age of first exposure right now. So I don't know how many, I don't know the demographics of the audience, but anybody that's, a parent out there, that number is drastically getting younger and younger every single year. And one thing I like to say to parents is when we can understand the brain and what even looking at porn once, two times, three times begins to do to the neurochemistry of the brain, then we need to put on high alert. And like I tell parents all the time, you got to get in front of the conversation. Like you have to be proactive about educating, about having the honest conversations with your children, because there will come a point. And I'm sure this happened with you. You seem to be a little bit younger than me. So my introduction to porn came through magazines. I wasn't 16, 17, almost 18 years old until we had a computer. But there will come a time in every young boy's or every young child's life when his eyes see something that his brain is not yet developed to handle. And it's in that moment, what does he decide to do? Is he going to go then talk to his parents and address it and be like, hey, I'm a little concerned with what I saw? And that's only going to be done if the parents lay the groundwork on the beginning, lay the groundwork, set the foundation by having the conversation with them up front. If you wait till your kid sees it and then you're expecting them to bring it to you and then you're going to handle it then you're already too late because his brain is already hooked on it. Literally, first, second exposure begins to change the baseline of where your brain begins to operate from. So yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you shared that.
Oh man, can we like dive into some of that brain science at all? Because I'm like super fascinated about that. Because man, like just my own experience, like growing up, man, I was so addicted to porn. It was crazy. Like that was we like as a kid with our friends, and we just spend so much time. Like I remember when we were like really young, we did have the internet, but we'd also go like to the back of news agencies and we go into like the big bins and we'd take out all of the magazines. And yeah, this wasn't like I was ever going to talk to my parents about it. I was like, no way, I'm going to go wank and get rid of this. This is fantastic. Look at all this stuff. I felt like so naughty and exciting all at the same time. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a massive rush of neuromodulators, neurotransmitters. You're getting these hits of dopamine, and it's a super normal levels of dopamine. So this is where that kind of hijacking of the reward center. So I don't know how deep you want to go, but our brains have this reward center. It was created, it was put there to keep us moving in the direction of progress. Keep us moving towards achievement of goals. Dopamine is meant to be a chemical that's released when you're in the process of achieving a goal. So for you, I know you're a fitness guy here. If you had a client that set out to lose 20 pounds, like they don't get the hit of dopamine at the end of the transformation. It's not like you lose 20 pounds, you look at yourself in the mirror, you look at the scale, and you hit your mark, and this massive hit of dopamine is released. That's not how it works. Dopamine is going to be released every time you make a choice moving you closer towards that goal. So when you wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. and decide to hit the gym instead of hitting the snooze button, hit a dopamine. When you choose the prepped meal, the beef and broccoli over the slice of pizza, hit a dopamine, because it's a choice decision made in the direction of your goal. Now, what ends up happening is with this super normal stimulus, like this internet streaming pornography, it's designed and created in a way that it hijacks the reward center. So first, second exposure of internet streaming pornography, you get this insane hit of dopamine, like far beyond anything you're going to get in the natural world. And that now establishes a new baseline for your brain.
you just cut out for a second then. I got to baseline for brain, and we're back.
Okay. So the baseline for your brain has now been it's been reset. So that first hit of exposure of internet streaming pornography, first second hit, you've established this new kind of normal of what dopamine your brain wants from dopamine. So knowing your brain is going to recognize that, so it's no longer going to get excitement or joy out of choosing broccoli over pizza because it's only going to give you this much dopamine. Whereas if I go look at pornography, I'm going to get a hit that's like this big. So this is where you become quote unquote addicted to it, because the only place that you're going to get that excitement, the only place that you're going to get that rush that you were describing is through looking for more pornography. So this is where I get a lot of guys that's like their lives are literally nothing beyond just sitting in front of their computer for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. They don't enjoy going to work. They're not motivated to go out and find a job. They're not motivated to create meaningful relationships because none of that does anything to them from a chemical level. So we have to reestablish what our brain and body wants as a reward. So that's kind of the easiest way. I mean, like I said, we can go as far down this hole if you have follow-up questions on that, but it's understanding.
Yeah, like I absolutely love that, and I think it's really important to know that obviously would have extreme cases where people are literally just that's all they do and focus on. But there's also other cases where just the normal person is it just happens end of the night every single night. They could be so much more productive, or they use it as an escape. Like how I explain it is like, that maybe you shouldn't be masturbating over porn if it's a comfort wank. Like if you're kind of doing this, this is how I make sense of it. If you find that it's like comfortable and you're doing it for comfort, it's sort of like maybe eating a donut on a Tuesday night because you didn't get everything done during the day. So it's a little bit like that. But oh man, I can 100% see how your brain becomes so conditioned to that hit. So what are some of the things that people can do in terms of replacing that hit of dopamine? Cocaine? But what can they actually do to start replacing those hits?
Yeah. Well, I think it's understanding that porn falls into the category with cocaine, with other high dopaminergic drugs that are giving you these super normal stimuluses. So if you think that you're going to go replace the hit that you got from porn with something else that's not a drug, that's not going to be destructive and is not going to have addictive tendencies built around it, then you're already setting yourself up for failure, because there's nothing that you're going to get that's going to give you the spurt, the surge, like the massive spike of dopamine. So it shouldn't be, how do I replace this surge with another surge? So that's a wrong approach from the beginning. And over time, you'll just eventually realize that there's nothing that's going to replace it. So you're just easily going to fall back into pornography. It's funny because as you were setting that up, you said that's the extreme case, but then there's the guy that looks at it every night before he goes to bed. I would say if you're having to watch it every single night in order to do something, that should alert you that there's a problem. If you have to do anything in order to do something else, that should alert you that there's a problem in your life. So I would say that guy's got it severe. He needs to look at it. It's what can a guy do to replace it?
Well, I would say even just to getting in front of it, because obviously you said you can't replace. So
yeah.
What are the strategies for getting ahead?
Yeah, so the process that we go through is I broke it down a little bit. It's like doing that kind of audit on your life and figuring out where is the negative impact been. It's not going to be a one-to-one exchange. You're not going to stop doing this thing and replace it with one other thing. You got to look at what the impact has been negatively and then build an overall holistic plan to improve your life, starting with the areas that it's negatively been impacted. What I like to say, and this has kind of been the philosophy, or the one, if I had to say, there's one statement that defines the work that we do at Rebuilt Recovery. The foundation, my approach to recovery has been built around, if you want to overcome your addiction to pornography, you must become the man that is no longer addicted to porn. And I put a lot of emphasis on that because I think this is where the identity change comes. This is where the real success. So you have to look at, okay, if I'm addicted to porn, why am I addicted to porn? You said eat the donut because you didn't do all the things throughout the day. Well, why didn't you do the things that you said you were going to do? That's the main problem. Like, you don't have a problem with the donut. You have a problem with you don't keep the promises you make to yourself. And if you could fix that, so if you became a man that every time you said you were going to do something, you actually did it, then the next step is to say, I no longer look at pornography. And because you do what you say you're going to do, you're not going to look at pornography. So thinking that you're going to fix a problem by addressing it through pornography is the wrong approach. You have to address who you are. You have to address your own flaws, your own failures, your own shortcomings. And in doing that, you'll begin to live a successful life once you realize that porn has no place in your life. So success, freedom, recovery is built around personal responsibility and taking ownership for all of your actions. Dude, in the most simplest terms.
Oh yeah, but I love that so much. It's straight fire. Like, a lot of old school, because I read a lot of like Greek philosophy and consciousness stuff, and a lot of old school Greek philosophy talks about the power of being integral to your word. And it's sort of like, a problem, almost like a problem, but a gift that all the gods have. And as you were saying, it's like, well, become integral to your word and then speak your truth and like results will come your way. I'm also intrigued into your story and like how you overcome it, because I overcome porn and masturbating. I decided to quit it all August last year. So it's been like a year since I've looked at porn or masturbated. And it was sort of at this part of my life where I was learning a lot about the importance of sexual energy and the creative ability. And I noticed that when I was in some sort of state in my life, and I was listening to a lot of authors, and I was like, when I was in a position of my life where I was really focused, I sort of naturally become celibate. And I was listening to authors say the same thing because I'm like so focused on creating something. And then I was going through this period where I was like in a relationship breakup, had just moved houses, and all of these different things were happening. And I was like, not everything's going my way right now. And it sort of usually does. Like, why? And I was masturbating all the time. I was looking at porn all the time. And I was like, well, this is one thing that I wouldn't be doing if I was creating and, as you mentioned beforehand, being like becoming the person you wanted to be. So I was like, I'm just going to quit it for like forever, I think. And then I was just like made that decision and it flicked. And then I've just like, I quit it forever. So I didn't have to make the decision to be like, oh, do I look at porn today? Do I masturbate today? And it's been one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. So I'd really like to know like your journey with that.
Yeah, I think for me, my story is very, very similar, and it's funny because I can tell just, from the first part of this conversation, you're a very, very well-read guy. You talked about this kind of sexual transmutation. Napoleon Hill talked about this in Think and Grow Rich. And I've read that book every year since like 2014. And I didn't even pick up on that chapter until 2019, which was kind of the beginning of my journey. I kind of just was blind to it. So there is something incredibly powerful to the ability to kind of harness the sexual creative energy and direct it or transmute it into something, whether it's a podcast, a coaching business, or marketing position. I mean, all the things that I'm doing today, the Superhuman Life, which is the podcast that I've been hosting for 2+ years, came out of the first 3 months of my recovery. But for me, man, I've kind of been, kind of a high tier, high performer, my entire life. I was a competitive bodybuilder for a decade plus, did okay here, kind of in the state of Florida, got a national, ranking qualification back in 2016. So, a lot of the discipline and things that, have been a foundation of my life have been with me for a really long time because I was a competitive athlete. And I've also been an entrepreneur for, 8-9 years now, had a company that grossed over $2.1 million from 2013 to 2017. So, I've always kind of been intrigued and been in this kind of high performance self-development world, going on for 15+ years now. While all that was going on, though, is I have, like I shared with you, I was struggling with pornography for over 20 years. And probably 18 of those 20 years, I didn't even recognize it as a problem. We kind of just talked about it. It was kind of the normal conversation. You just thought like, oh yeah, you're a guy, you're supposed to look at it. I wasn't able to connect anything until I heard a podcast with an author by the name of Michael John Cusick. He wrote a book called Surfing for God. And this podcast would have been around late September, maybe October 2018. And Michael, he's an author, he's a recovery coach and therapist now, and it was dark, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things that were probably in my future. So after hearing that podcast, I began to kind of do some of the research. I shared with you, I've kind of been into the self-development world and space for a really long time. So after hearing that podcast, I looked up Your Brain on Porn, the Gary Wilson TED Talk, the book, and I started to kind of develop a little bit of understanding of what was actually happening. It took me, a couple months to kind of figure things out and make the ultimate choice in my life. But for me, the day came on February 14th of 2019. At the time, I was in a long-term relationship, and we had the discussions and talks of what future looked like, between the two of us. And I had this kind of realization, just one Thursday afternoon, having a conversation with a friend of mine, that if I was actually going to pursue, a future in this relationship, she needed to know the truth. And that was kind of my defining moment. So just like you, I made a choice one day that I was going to change my life. And a lot of the driving force behind it was the relationship in the beginning. But as I got, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days beyond, and I went through this process that we know is like rebooting of your brain, and you begin to kind of see the world a little bit different. Like all these new creative sparks began to kind of show up in my life. I'd already been a successful entrepreneur. I had already written, a couple ebooks. I had one business. I had a second business that was beginning to take off. So I thought I was creative, but literally almost overnight, I got this almost new sense of joy and purpose
Wow.
to life. And in doing that, I just felt like I have to put this out into the world. People need to know what I'm experiencing. Maybe it was unique to me, or maybe other people, if they make the same choices and decisions that I do, they'll experience the same thing. So that kind of led me to starting the podcast, which was just something I wanted to kind of put my story out into the world. And through doing that, because I'd been a fitness coach, I'd had, people messaging me, and I was working with clients online, running a business. Over the first, 4, 5, 6 months of having the podcast, the messages that people were sending me, the things that they were saying, the reach outs, they changed from, oh, thank you for the fitness content. Thank you for, helping me build bigger biceps, or I lost 15 pounds. Those messages, they didn't stop, but what really increased were the messages, thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your vulnerability. And can you help me with this? So I didn't think that when I got clean, or when I recovered and started a podcast, that it was going to lead me to, a coaching business and kind of all the things that we're doing now. It kind of just all kind of evolved over time. But one thing that was really cool is, that journey that I was sharing with you, the first 3 months or so, kind of post quitting porn, I documented a lot of it, just not even thinking at the time. I used to turn my IG TV on, and I would just talk. I'd be on these long walks in my neighborhood, and I would just talk, and I would just share what I was experiencing at the time. And after, 7, 8 months of people messaging me, I went back and I watched all those videos. And it was in those videos that I found the pieces. I found the secrets to what I was doing. It just wasn't that I decided to quit porn. It was I decided to quit porn, but then I got heavily invested in gratitude. Then I got heavily invested in work outside, taking long walks. I got heavily invested in reading. Men's are now a part of our coaching curriculum. I was doing them because I knew through all the research in the self-development world that they were principles to improve my life. I just didn't connect the dots until a year later that it was actually a recovery program that I almost put myself through by accident.
Yeah. Dude, wow. Yeah, I love that so much. Tell us a story, or tell us about a time when you were on the come up, when you were rebooting, because that is fantastic, because I experienced sort of something similar. What was this? Is this energy real? Is this serious? I'm already pretty energetic, so it was quite fantastic. But yeah, man, I'd love to hear about a time when you were actually on that come up.
Yeah, it would have been right around the 60-day mark. I took a trip with some very close friends up to the mountains, about 8 hours north of where I'm at in Tampa. My first time away, in a cabin for a full week, no people around you. We literally went to the grocery store twice in the entire week, just had our food. So we didn't have to leave the cabin. And it was the second or third morning. I remember, I'm an early riser, like I told you. I was up at 5:30. And I remember walking out of the cabin, and there's this river behind our cabin that was like rapids. And I remember being out there, and I took a chair and I set the chair right on the bank of the river, and I put my feet in the river as the 50-degree water is just brushing through. This is like early April 2019. Trees are there, like the sun is coming up, the wind is kind of whistling through the trees, and like in that moment, I'm getting the bumps as I'm telling to you this right now. I felt such a presence of life. I felt such a presence of the nature around me. I felt connected to almost to everything, and almost in a way, there was a psychedelic component to it, like something that you would only get through a kind of a plant medicine journey. Like I just felt this connection to everything. And I never felt that before. Like I never felt such a sense of joy, like an excitement of life, like really feeling life for what it was truly meant to be. So yeah, I mean, there's so many, but for some reason that one in it, and it's funny because that chair sitting on the bank of the water is the home screen for my cell phone. So every time I unlock the phone, I'm looking at that chair, and it reminds me of that moment, because it was in that moment that everything like just kind of came together with the podcast. Like you need to do this, and like this is where you need to take your relationship, and these are the things you need to be creating. And it's almost like my life began almost in that red chair. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. I
but
bet
that
felt
would have been
incredible.
one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet that feeling was just absolutely insane. Just like making that connection for like 10 to 20 different things, and it all just come together.
All just came together. Like this is exactly where you're supposed to be. All the crap you've gone through, all the dumb decisions that you've made. Don't beat yourself up, because that's what a lot of guys struggle with: guilt and shame and these feelings of like, I was an idiot for making these decisions. In my life will it ever be okay? Am I gonna have to deal with this for the rest of my life? And it's like in that moment, like the river, it's almost like symbolism. As the river was washing away all of my past. Like you don't have to worry about any of this. Don't care, because we're gonna wash this all away, and now we're gonna give you this new life. And yeah, it was incredibly powerful.
How nuts sometimes is just like taking a little bit of stillness out in nature, especially at like a transition point of your life when you did like wasn't 100% sure was there, and it sort of just like unlocked everything. Man, I think that's just like ridiculous. So good.
Well, that's something that it's something we actually build into the curriculum, like quiet time, alone time, stillness. Like, and it makes sense when you think about somebody that is struggling with porn addiction. Like they're overstimulated, they're over consuming. Their day is either social media, pornography, work, this, that. Like they're always intake, input, consume.
Yeah.
So in fact, if you could just learn to slow down and literally do nothing, like sit there with your thoughts and just be present in your own thoughts, be still for a moment, and just experience what that is meant to be like. It's like I literally shot a video one time. It's like doing nothing will help you quit porn. Like it's kind of an oxymoron. Kind of, it's a attention grabbing title for a video, but it makes sense. But that was it. It's like learn to spend some time in stillness. And it's not just for people that are struggling with porn. Most of society today could benefit from having a little bit of stillness in your day.
Yeah, man. Preach that, dude. I couldn't believe that anymore. I in my own coaching programs, I just make the title Stillness and Musings, as in musings being like self-reflection time. And it's always so intense when I'm coaching like an entrepreneur or someone in business, and because they're just like so ridiculously like busy all the time. All their thoughts are so distracted, and they're constantly doing. Like as soon as they sort of step away for a while and they just think, or they have some time just to either write stuff down, or they always come to like some really big, awesome decision that they need to make with their own personal life, or it could be something exactly like quitting porn, a conversation, or even like in my case, be less porn, people like just spending some serious time with a relationship partner. Like I had a client ring me up the other day. He was like, man, I'm feeling like real burnt out at the moment. Like I'm getting real good sleep though. I'm loving all my stuff. I'm currently like, everything's working out really well, but I'm just exhausted. And I was like, what's your body tell you, man? And he was like, and he had to think about it for a while. And he was like, do nothing? Like asking a question. He was like, do I do nothing? And I was like, Yes.
Mm.
So like I really agree with what you were saying, man, because like I think from some of the research I've done, it seems like one of the epitones of masculine energy. If we look at like if I look at a Buddha statue, or if I look at like a Greek god statue like Hercules or like Theseus or something, they look very super stoic, right? They have these great bodies and they're always there like thinking like like on all the statues and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's what men are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be like fit and we're supposed to think all the time. Like it sort of just
Yeah.
had like a little click for me. And I was like, oh, okay. And obviously social media and porn, every time that like when I was watching porn and masturbating, it was like every time I felt lonely or bored, I'd be like, well, could get around this right now, make myself feel a little bit better. So dude, thanks for getting those clicks just going off in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, love it.
Yeah, that was yeah, fantastic. So like what else do you guys sort of discuss and talk about and go through? Yeah, then I was just saying, is there anything that like what are some of the like in-depth details that you guys go into when it comes to like helping people like realize some of the things? Because you mentioned like you had the coaching and understanding like people's lives, but it seems that it's literally like it's more like like porn's definitely not the problem. It's the problem with the person. And then we'll talk about stillness. So is there like any like reflections? I'm just thinking for people listening, if they're like, okay, I really want to get a little bit of stillness in, I want to reflect. How do I actually do it? Like, what would you say to them?
How do you get stillness?
Yeah, well, I'd say what like because surely like I'm just assuming that you'd have some sort of like either reflection exercises or certain conversations that you guys would talk about in your programs. So I was like wondering like what some of those are, because obviously when you do have those, you're likely to get stillness. So
Yeah, we have a couple different ones. I have what is literally called daily reflection journaling. It's a 3 to 5 minute exercise that you need to do at the end of every single day. And what do you reflect upon kind of depends upon where you are in your journey. I would tell most of the men are early on, if you're trying to get yourself off of pornography, which is what I can speak to, is because that's the your coaching that I'm doing in the early stages and in early days and weeks of your recovery or reboot process. Think about, like, reflect upon the moments throughout the day when you were triggered, like when you thought that looking at porn would have been a good idea, and kind of wrap your head around like what is causing all of that. Like, was it something like you said, when you used to be bored all the time, like the first thought was like, oh, now here's the sign to like go look at porn. We'll spend some time thinking about like why is that the immediate default answer, and then what would have been the better alternative. And then if you do work yourself through the trigger and you don't relapse, or you don't use it as a reason to go back to the old pattern of behavior, in the journaling exercise, like, reward yourself and acknowledge for making the right decision. This is where you're beginning to kind of reshape your relationship to pornography. And a lot of what freedom in recovery is going to come from is the relationship that you have to pornography. So that would be one, that kind of daily reflection. As the program evolves, like, I tell the guys, just spend some time every day, at the end of every day, thinking about what you're thinking about. And this can be done by anybody. Like, you have what, 50, 60, 80,000 thoughts, depending upon where, what research. Some research is as low as like 8 to 12,000. Other ones is way up there. But based upon those, even if it's on the low end, let's say you had 10,000 thoughts every single day. It's a lot. Like, think about them. Like, where are they coming from? Are they true? Are they false? Are they lies? Are they false beliefs about things that you feel about your past? Are they signals of things that you need to be addressing in your life that you're not giving attention to? So probably the best thing that people can do, anybody, whether you're struggling with porn or you're just looking to improve your life, is spend some time each day thinking about what you're thinking about. And that would probably be a really powerful exercise for people. And then we have gratitude journaling exercise that we do with our guys as well. There's meditative practices that we walk them through, but we drip this all out through the course of a program. Like, I would recommend somebody, if you're doing nothing right now, don't start doing evening reflection journaling, morning gratitude, afternoon meditation, spending 30 minutes after dinner. Like, start with one thing and consistently do one thing for 30 days, and then add a second thing. But for most people, 5 minutes of just, paying attention to your breathing can be very calming and centering. If you can't, if you can't do it without, headphones, or you can't even slow down and control your thoughts, look at some of, the meditative apps that are out there. So Calm app is an amazing app. You can even go on YouTube, so you don't have to pay or download anything. Just go on YouTube and put guided meditation, and literally you'll get a million things that'll pop up, and just pick one. Just start doing it. I think that's the most important thing. Like, you're not going to be great at it. Like, why would you be great at meditating? Why would you be great at stillness if you've never done it before? Just like anything, you have to put in reps, you have to put in time, you have to put in practice, and you'll improve it.
Yeah.
I think the best step is just be still. Like, if you want to practice stillness, be still.
It's hard, man. It's so true, but it's so hard. Like, even at the moment, like I've done, like I've been really disciplined for certain meditations or stillness exercises for certain periods of time. And then for some reason, I'm like, the next minute I'm like, hey, I haven't been meditating, or I haven't been still for like 2 weeks now. What the hell's going on here? And then it's like a struggle to get back. So I'm always like constantly having to like get ahead of myself and forgive myself for like not getting it in. But when I do, every single time, it's like it feels so much better. Have you got any like success stories that you could share if we like called someone person A in terms of like going through the program? Is there any times that
there's so many of them.
What's one that like you were really proud of?
I worked with a young man, and I questioned even taking him on as a client in the beginning. I sound bad saying this, but because of his age, he was 18 years old. He was a senior in high school. Up until that point, the youngest person that I had coached had been 27. The majority of our men are, kind of, early to mid 30s. We've had guys, mid 50s, and I even worked with one individual that was mid 60s. But this particular individual, person A, like you called them, was very, very young. He was 18. He was still in high school.
Hold on, you just cut out for a second. Then we'll be back in a sec, I'm sure.
Although he was still
And you're back now.
Me? Am I with you?
Yep, you're back now. Yep. So it's 18.
Oh, okay.
He's in school.
Yeah. So this particular individual, he really impressed me. In our first call, he was 18 years old, was a high school senior, had a part-time job working in a restaurant, and had a clothing apparel business that was already profitable, not massively profitable. I mean, he obviously still had to work his second job, but he was making money from a business that he started online at 18 years old, and he really impressed me with his maturity. So after having a talk with him for about an hour, we decided that we would work together and we would join our program. And over the course of our 4 months, I saw this individual go from a high school senior that was struggling with confidence in who he was, extremely confident individual on the outside, but when you kind of got into what he thought about himself and his identity, he was very hard on himself. He beat himself up a lot. And what we were able to do through our coaching program, we had our slips and struggles and ups and downs. But around the midway point, everything just clicked for him. And he had that, he had one of these moments where it all just kind of came together. And to see an 18-year-old individual with that much drive and determination to improve himself, with that much drive and determination to become a better version and leave a lasting impact. And the day that we finished our recovery program, he shot a video for his IGTV that I ended up resharing on my page. But he put it all out there, and he shared, with his social media following and his business and everything. Like, here I was just a couple months ago, this young boy that had this secret, and I was hiding it from people, and I was scared to talk with girls, and I've gotten my life back under control, and I'm excited about the future. His business took off, and he ended up signing a couple celebrities and created affiliates in his clothing brand. I was like, how are you figuring this stuff out at 18 years old? Like, I can't figure some of this stuff out as a, 38-year-old entrepreneur, and I've had businesses for almost 10 years. Some of the things he's doing, I'm like, how are you doing this? So we just, it was so amazing. But brother, I have so many of those. I have guys, reconnecting with their wives and families, and, launching new businesses and getting promotions and landing jobs that they never thought they would be prepared for. And it's just been amazing. But yeah, if I had to talk about one, it probably would have been that young man, because to see somebody of that age, like it tells me that, whatever people say about the future leaders of whatnot, or your view on society and the younger generation, there's a lot of amazing young men out there, and I'm excited to play a role in any of their lives. But yeah, that probably would have been, the most impactful story that we've had.
Oh man, I bet that's just so motivating for you to like charge up and
Mm,
just keep going.
yeah, no, 100%.
Oh God, I love that so much. What would you say to people? Let's say if anyone's listening and they're like, "Oh, I'm interested, but I don't know." Like, what would you say to them? Like, or what would you like encourage like them to do? Because obviously, if someone's listening and they feel a little bit like, "Whew, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't," like they're attracted to it. They like the sound of like, okay, that kind of sounds good. What sort of nudges would you give them?
Yeah, it's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to nudge anybody to do anything. And I tell people on the call, like, if I have to convince you to join a program, you're not a fit. I don't so I mean, I feel I had the ability to, persuade, overcome objections, close people, whatnot. And I've had to use a lot of that in some of the other businesses that I've ran. I've worked in some high aggressive sales positions. This approach, this business, I'm taking a completely different model. Like, I'm not here to
Yeah.
close or sell anybody. If you're not ready, then then you're not ready. And there's no judgment upon anybody. But anybody listening to this, anybody that's a follower of you, anybody that's tuning into this podcast, I'm going to challenge you, because you're not here unless you're about improving yourself, unless you're about getting better. So if that is who you are, then I just would encourage you to maybe do some of your own research. Just look at some of the things that are on YouTube. Check out my channel. We talk a lot on the science stuff. I've had a neuroscience on. We've done two 90-minute episodes on the neuroscience of pornography addiction,
Whoa.
that we really break down,
Whoa.
we really get into the nitty gritty of the details on what's happening at your brain. Check out Gary Wilson's stuff, Your Brain on Porn. He did an amazing TED talk that you can find on YouTube called The Porn Experiment. So anybody that's hearing this and is in that kind of class of people that are achievers or peak performers, or improving themselves, I'm not here to tell you that what you're doing is bad or you're a horrible person. But if your goal in life is becoming the best version of yourself, do yourself the favor, do your future self the favor, and begin to understand what you're doing to yourself, what you're doing to your brain. And if that makes sense, then you're ready. And then we could explore maybe getting into a program. But I'm not here to, force
Oh,
it
I
down,
get it.
talk,
Yeah.
from a moral approach, because everybody's got a choice to do with what they want with their life. But as somebody that spent 2 decades in the personal development world with a porn addiction, I wish somebody would have told me this information 2 decades ago, because it would have put like a rocket ship on my life. And that's where I think the biggest support has come from my friends and other people kind of in the space. It's like, wow, like, I'm not doing this because I thought I had a problem, even if it's once, twice a week or once, twice a month. Like, I got friends that are like, dude, because of the things that you're talking about, I decided to cut it out completely, and their lives improve. So that's it. If you're a peak performer, if you're an achiever, if you're focused on progress, do your own research. But maybe this conversation, maybe this episode is just that encouragement for you to maybe take that next step.
Oh, dude. Thank you so much for saying that, and like the honesty there. And dude, it's so true. I couldn't agree anymore. What do you think for you personally are some of the biggest lessons that you have learned? Where it could be something in the brain science when you were like, whoa, or it could be some sort of self-reflection that you were doing. Like, that is just, I'm so happy that I know that now. Yeah. What do you think some of those lessons for you would be?
Yeah, I mean, specifically around the topic of pornography, it's 100%, what it's doing to the brain. If, like I said, if I would have known that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I probably would have saved myself a lot of, stupid mistakes in business and whatnot. And I probably would have, saved myself from a lot of dark places as well. One thing I didn't really share a lot about here is kind of some of the struggles that I had with depression and anxiety and kind of those darker places. So I think understanding what it actually did to my brain, like, I probably would have stopped it a lot sooner, and it probably would have kept me out of a lot of those darker areas. Now, in general, what's been the biggest lesson I've probably learned, or the biggest maybe pivot or transition in my life, is truly the belief that every single one of us is here on this earth for a purpose. In that purpose, somewhere it's centered around the service of others. And when we can all fully embrace, and this is why the podcast that I host is called The Superhuman Life, because it's designed to help people uncover their God-given purpose and then equip them with the tools to bring that purpose to life. Because I think I'm not here to solve the world's problems, but I think if more people were centered around living their life, were centered on living their life through their purpose, a lot of the problems we're seeing in the world today would go away.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you anymore. Man, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and like sharing all of your wisdom. I think there's so much, like so many nuggets there. I think that you've, like from what I can tell, obviously you're super well read, but you've done so much self-reflection and helped understand yourself so much that when you do help people and they do reach out to make that decision to make their life better, is that you get such massive results. And speaking from a guy's point of view, who have also quit porn and masturbation, and like seeing that you do that and help coach other people as well, and you've figured out all of the solutions, it just like, it makes me feel so much like more confident to be a guy, to be in general. And it makes me like so much more like confident that like porn addiction is, and watching porn all the time shouldn't be the norm. And that the moments that you mentioned beforehand, when you're sitting outside in the red chair and the stream's flowing through your feet, and like the pure bliss and the sensations that you're feeling through that is. So, man, huge thanks for that.
Yeah, no, Corey, thank you for that. Thank you for, opening up, your platform here today, and I want to acknowledge you as well. I mean, you had me on here today, and you decided to explore a topic and have a conversation that not a lot of people are willing to have. So I appreciate you for sharing this with your audience. I think it took a lot of courage and vulnerability for even you just sharing kind of some of your own personal struggles. And I think that's what we need. We need guys of influence. We need guys in powerful positions that have a lot going for them as well. I mean, great looking guy, successful, doing a lot of really great things in the world. So for you to say like, I struggle with this as well, I think that gives a lot of people out there encouragement. And yeah, on the impact side for me, I know what coaches and mentors have meant in my life. I'm not sure I would be anywhere that I am today without having people that have spoken into me, that have encouraged me, that have had more belief in me when I didn't have it in myself. Without those type of people in my life, I'm not sure I would be anywhere today. I probably would be on the street somewhere, or maybe not even. I might be in the ground somewhere. So if I could do a fraction of what people have done in my life into somebody else's life, then in my eyes, I'm winning. So yeah, no, thank you.
I just got goosebumps as you were saying that. I got goosebumps. So where can people find you, man, if they're interested and they're like, yep, done. I want to follow Frank and see all the stuff and maybe jump on a program. Where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys, or obviously if you're hearing this on the podcast side, we do have a weekly podcast that airs every Monday morning. It's called The Superhuman Life.
Hold on 2 seconds. We cut out there.
Around, today's conversation.
We got podcast, The Superhuman Life, every single Monday. You release that? Yeah.
The podcast goes live on Monday morning. For more content, around today's conversation, check out our YouTube channel. It's Rebuild Your Life is the channel name. We drop videos every single day, Monday through Friday. So 5 videos a week. With the first one being Mondays is the podcast episode. We release the video over there. Then Tuesday through Friday, we drop short actionable videos on tips, strategies, tactics for actually overcoming pornography. So check out the YouTube channel. So podcast, YouTube channel, and then connect with me on Instagram. It's at the Superhuman Frank on IG. And I do have a gift. I don't know if you'd be okay with me, giving a gift to your audience.
Man, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. So if anybody, was intrigued by today's conversation, or they're like, yeah, this, maybe I do have this problem and I want to maybe take some of the first steps. I wrote a book called The 7-Step Guide to Living Life Without Porn. It's absolutely free. It's a digital ebook, but it walks you through the 7 steps that we broke into our curriculum for our men. So that's at www.the7stepguide.com. All of that is spelled out. The7stepguide.com. You just put your email address and we'll send the book to you immediately. But that's been the most successful program that we have to date. Over 1,100 men gone through that in the last 13 months and begin to build a life without porn. So yeah, those are all the best places to connect with me.
Dude, that's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for the gift. And man, I hope that rocket ship keeps taking off for you, man, because it's just fantastic. Such good work.
Awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.